Okay, here we go. So we've been getting into this. We could keep going deeper into this, or we can probably we should not do this one unless people really want to look at that. I mean, I can look at that. What do you want to do? Nobody? Only need one vote. You want me to pick it? Yeah. Okay, that's your vote. All right. Let me think. What's useful for you? Oh my God, there's so many things. But you got to look into this. Just remember the gotcha. You got to take those white spaces out. And you saw that when we did the, view source over there, what happened. I was making a menu system, and I just could not get things lined up right. And finally, I took the white space out after hours of working on that thing, and boom, it was like I got the problem solved because I wasn't aware of the text nodes in there. Let's the bind function. Let me talk about this because I like that. I mean, that's one of my favorite topics, and it's short and easy. But we could discuss more about callbacks. Actually, we can do it in the context of Canvas programming because set timeout and request, these are all callback functions. Request animation frame, they're not callback functions, but they're functions that we pass a callback function into. So when we want one of our functions to be called by the browser because of some event happening, right? You pass a reference to your function to the browser through one of these functions or any other ones too, some other ones as well. And then the browser will invoke that function when that event occurs. So, and you've got to be careful when you're using this in that context, and sometimes you have to fix problems using bind. So let's look at that. So let's do this. Let's create a canvas and say width equals, say 200 and height equals 200. It was Thomas who told me about I had this missing before. I was trying to get things to work like that, right? And he said I had to make it and that's tricky. Like see this script, like if you when you load a script, so a self-closing tag versus a normal tag with an end tag and a start tag. When you load a script, you make it look like this, right? So you have the src attribute, and it would be convenient just to close it right there, right? Say that's the end of it. But actually, it won't load. You actually have to use a closing tag with no content in there. So I don't know why. But for other elements, you don't have to do that. Like the link element in the header, when you're linking to a style sheet, you can use a self-closing tag. So the whole web development has got so many idiosyncrasies, so many exceptions. It's like being a tax lawyer. You ever see the tax code, the federal tax code? I did some research on that many years ago, and I went to the library to look up something in the federal tax code. It was gigantic. It was massive. It was this giant, long shelf of books, and that was, I had to find the thing in there. There's just so many exceptions. There's so many idiosyncrasies. So basically, it's sort of good for you in a way. I mean, there's some job there, as you work with the material and you start to remember all of these exceptions. Then you become a more valuable member of the team wherever you are, whatever work you're doing. Anyway, that's obvious. So let's see the script here. Let's take a look at this. We don't want this image in here. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let's put this image right in there. Here's this image. I like to do it like this. Make the image hidden. Give it an ID. we'll call it I. No, I is not very good. Call it IMG, I guess. There we go. And I'll spell it out. Image. So this loads the image. So we don't have to load it in the script. And it loads it at the point here. It loads it early rather than loading it later. If you load the image in script, sometimes if you're not using request animation frame and you try to draw to your canvas one time, the image isn't going to show up. Let me show that to you. I am going to demonstrate that to you. So right now. So we're going to do, here's our image. I'm about to comment this out. I just commented that. It's an HTML comment. That'll be ignored. So we do, to load an image in script, you do this. You create the new image. And then you do, what do you do? Set the image, the source attribute here. Image. I set the source attribute to image.jpg. And then in the canvas, X is not a good name for the canvas, is it? Let's call it canvas. So in the canvas, you got to pull out the context to do any work. So let's do that. And so that's const CTX is the standard name and the common name that people use. And we're going to draw the image. And I'll have to look that one up. So this is draw image JavaScript. Draw image. So the image and then the XY coordinate of the upper left-hand corner of the image. So draw image. I believe it's the upper left-hand corner. We could verify that. So if we draw it at 0, 0, it should fit right in the well. Let's put it out a little bit. 20, 20. And then we got the image here. There we go. I criticize you guys for not indenting, right? Yeah, I'm a hypocrite. There you go. No, I'm not. So here we go. We use the image constructor function, or the image class. So you have classes now. And then in the object, we set the SRC attribute. It's going to initiate a loading of this image. But the loading happens asynchronously. So we don't, if it was a synchronous, if this operation was synchronous, that means this line would block, would pause, execution would stop here and wait for the image to load. And then then execution would continue on to the next line. But that doesn't happen. This line here, this starts an activity, it schedules an activity. So this starts a separate activity to go and fetch the image. You still have this image object, it got created, but it's not going to render because the data hasn't been loaded yet. And so it's asynchronous. Now, synchronous means it's stop and wait. But it's asynchronous, so it's not stopping and waiting. It's going to go ahead and run these two lines next. So we're not going to see the image because it hasn't retrieved the image yet. And let's do that. There we go. Draw image. Provided value is not of type. Draw image. What the heck? You know what it is? Let's do this. Because it didn't load it yet. So let's give it some dimensions. This is the height and the width. We're going to squeeze it into 100 by 100. I think that's going to fix it. The provided value is not of type CSS image value or HTML image element or any of these. What's going on? Why does that not work? So new image. Did I get this thing right? Let me take it over here. So new image constructor. New image. Do I have new image there? New image width and height. There it is. Oh, I just got to go first, right? Did I get that in the wrong space? Is that what you're saying? Is that it? Yes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, see, it takes all of us really to. No one person knows everything. All right, that'll work. And there we go. Thank you. You don't see anything because the image didn't load. Well, let's watch this. Let's use a callback function. And we're going to listen for the loading of the image. Watch this. And so we have the image object dot add event listener load. There's a load event. Once the image is loaded, it's going to trigger this. Is there a shorter way to do this? Is that the shortest we can do it? There might be a shorter way to do that. Let's try. We'll experiment with that in a minute. So yeah, I don't want to confuse people with that notation, right? I know I covered it already, but I'll cover it again. It's the same thing as this. This is a, it's an anonymous function. A function doesn't have a name. And we just, we use it where we define it. We don't need a name. So we're not gonna call draw image. We're gonna call draw image in this callback function. And the callback function will be invoked when the load event happens. That should render the image. Now we're going to see the image because the data will, remember this is asynchronous, so too much talking. There it is. Just want to make things a little more, let's just take a look. That syntax there. This is the function arguments, right? And then you got this arrow, and then this. Let's see. That should work. Right? There you go. Same thing. Can we do this? Think that's going to work? I don't think that's going to work. No, syntax error. Is that the shortest? What's the shortest way to do this? Anybody know? Maybe we can omit this. I don't think so. Nah. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So there's a callback function. Now let's do this. Let's create an object called game. So our game object. And the game has an image. There it is. Oh, by the way, we don't need these arguments after the thing loads. Let me back up a little bit. Hold on. Let me just get a little. I want to demonstrate that to you first before we go on. Undo this. Okay, this guy's working, right? Remember, the thing wouldn't work when we didn't have any arguments. Well, now it will work because after loading happens, the image gets its width and height defined, so we don't need to pass it into the constructor. Ta-da. Not that. So this is acceptable. And so here I'm gonna get rid of that. It's nice. So I'm going to put this up here. It's like our global variable context. And then we're defining a game, a variable, right? So it refers to an object. And we're going to put all kinds of stuff in there. We're going to organize our game under that. So we have a game.image. We're going to put the image under there. And then we're going to initiate the asynchronous loading, like that. And then we got this function. I wish I had done something else first, but that's okay. I think I'm going to do it like this. So here's our function, which is we call it draw. It's our draw function. And nah, I'm not going to do that. Take that back. That's not how I'm going to do it. I got to make sure it's a good example. I'm going to go back to that syntax. Well, image is now oh, game. This isn't going to work either. Hold on there. So let's call this. Let's call it like this. Game.draw. I got to figure this out. How to make this thing fail. I know how to make it work. I just can't. I got to figure out how to make it fail. Right, there we go. So when we draw it, you know, we do this. We go context dot draw image, this dot image. Because draw is a function here that's defined with this game object, all right? With this object. So I have to use this attribute to get at that image, which we defined right here. So, I mean, we could just do this. Yeah, we'll leave that out. So we're gonna game dot, we want to call it game dot draw. We want to call it game dot draw. When the image loads. Okay, this will fail, I hope. And how will it fail? It's going to say, you know, image is undefined. That's what it's going to say. Let's see if I got it right. Oh, look at that. Image is not defined. I got pretty close. Why does it say image is not defined? Well, that's because this here, see this right here? This is a reference to a function. It's not a reference to an object. The event listeners, this add event listener takes as its second argument a reference to a function. We have to pass in a function. But our function is on our game object. So we want our function we kind of look at it as a member function of the game object. But it doesn't see the game object. It just sees a function. See, in JavaScript, it's not like C++, you know, well, I don't want to go into that direction. So this event listener machinery, see, we send in this pointer to the function, to this add event listener, and it stores the pointer to that function. It doesn't have a pointer to game. It doesn't know about game. It just has a pointer to the function that we attach to game. See, game has an attribute named draw. And you know what that is right there? That's not a function, right? It's a reference. It's a pointer to a function. So this is a pointer to a function. That's what we're doing here. See, when you define a function like this, you know, it evaluates to a reference to that function, and that reference is then assigned to this property of that game object. So we're passing in a pointer, we're passing in a reference, independent of the object that, you know, we used up here. Because see, this function, it just got created on its own. It's not bound to the game object. It's not in the game object. It's just a function. And what I have highlighted there evaluates to a reference to that function. And that reference or pointer is assigned to this property. Okay, well, we didn't have, and then we just use that property in order to pull the pointer out, pull the reference out, to pass it into the add event listener function. So when it runs the function, it gets to this line right here. CTX, well, it knows that. That's a global variable. We defined it here. So CTX is good. Dot draw image, well, yeah. Context have a draw image function. That's all right. Then it goes this dot image. Well, what's this? All it has is a pointer to the function. It doesn't have any It's not invoking the function against an object with the dot operator. It just has a function. So we're using this. So what does this equal? When an add event listener tries to execute this line of code, what does this refer to? Well, it doesn't refer to game, because when we passed in the reference to the draw function here, we used game to pull the reference out, but the add event listener doesn't have a reference to the game object. It doesn't know about the game object. It just has a pointer. Hope I'm not beating a dead horse here. I'm talking too much. Okay, so this does not refer to game the way we want it to. And actually, when in this situation, when the browser is going to invoke a function, but not against an object that you provide, then this will end up referring to what? To the global window object. So this now refers to the global window object. And IMG, well, let's make this work. Watch this. We're going to cheat on this. Watch this. We got the window object, which is the global namespace, and we're going to set it to this, to that reference. Now it's going to run, because now we promoted. Now we added an attribute to the window object in the global namespace. Put it in the global namespace. So now this will refer to window. So this .image works. Let's see if that works. It doesn't work. Fail to execute draw image is not of type image value. Oh, it's the same problem. This is load, right? Hold on there. What the heck? What am I doing wrong? After we should have loaded it first. This is the image load event. What the heck? Okay, I'm just cheating. I don't know what I'm just guessing here that that's going to fix it without knowing if it's going to work. So what is going on? Draw image. Fail to execute draw image on this provided value is not of type image. So image.game.draw. What? Image.game.draw. Did I do something wrong? I think I did something dumb there. This is game.image. And this is image. So I call this game.draw. When I run this, what? What's that?
I think the question is, what is this .image?
I don't know.
That's what it's saying.
Got a bad ear.
It's saying that this .image is not what it's expecting. So
Yeah.
what is this .image?
Well, I think this .image should be window.image. That's what my point. I was trying to make the point that this. I was working. My hypothesis is that when the callback function's invoked, this refers to window. And maybe I'm wrong there. So let's do this. Oh. It probably refers to image. It refers to image. It refers to, oh, wait a minute. Add event listener. Oh, I got this all wrong. This should be game.image. Sorry. All right. I made a mistake there. Shouldn't have been working before. This should be game.image. Image is undefined down here, so it shouldn't have been working. Let's go back to that. This should fail because This should be undefined. Oh, it's defined here. Oh. When we didn't have this line in there, this should have said, add event listener doesn't exist. Undefined, or image is undefined. This is what it should have said. I think what it should have said. What I think it should have said. Let's see. That should be an error. Yeah, image is not defined. Okay, sorry, I had a bug there. Image is not defined. This should be game.image. See, and now this will, when it runs this function here, it's going to say it'll fail. All right. Here we go. Failed to execute draw image on this dot image, because this equals the window object. So if I uncomment that, now it's going to work. It doesn't work. It's still not working. So what is going on? So window image equals game.image, game.image add event listener, load. In that case, I'll make it work. Watch this. This is going to be really wacky. I think that's going to make it work. I'm ready to bet on this one. I'm ready to make a wager that's going to work. Ah, look at that. I get the money. I should have bet. What the heck? That's because here, I'm going to show you my thinking. Console.assert, right? That this is the window object. They refer to the same object. So this will fail. This assertion will fail because I was assuming that this referred to the window object, but I was wrong. Assertion failed. See, that's why my reasoning was false. This refers to the image object. Now that assertion, now won't print assertion failed anymore. See that? So that's because, see this event listener here? When it runs game.draw, that this ends up being set to the element that triggered the event, not the global namespace. So a mistake there. The global namespace is used when we do set timeouts. I'll show you that. Let me show you that. And take this out. Take that out. What we're going to do is set timeout game.draw. And we're going to wait 1 second. That's enough time to load the image. We're going to wait a second. That's 1,000 milliseconds, and then we're going to call draw. Now this will fail. The assertion will fail. It doesn't fail. Oh, yes, it does fail. Failed. Here's the console assert failed. That's because this is what I was assuming before. This actually refers to the window object. Okay. So when set timeout, here we're passing in just a function pointer in the set timeout. So it's just a function. There's no object. Here with the event listener, we pass in just a function, right? But when the event listener runs, we have, it was called again, the event listener itself is attached to an element that triggers the event. So that's what this is used for. So this assertion will pass. I mean, it still won't, print the image. It'll still fail to print the image, but the assertion will pass. Let's watch. See, it says here now, the assertion failed. And we're going to pass, we're going to get the assertion's going to pass. See, no assertion failure, but it doesn't work yet because this equals window. So now what we want to force it to work, we would do window.image equals game.image. Because this equals window, so that means this dot image here is window.image. So we're setting window.image to game.image here. All right. Now it's good to go. Of course, we're just looking at these things. Let's get this one out of here. Oh, now let's fix this. We don't want to take this assertion. We don't want this code in here, right? We don't want to be putting the game, creating that global variable. What we want to do is when the timeout invokes this function, we want this to refer to game, so that this dot image is a valid reference. Yeah. In set timeout?
No, in game.draw.
Oh yeah, game.image.
No,
Yeah, that'll fix the problem right there.
No, right.
I mean, that's it right there. No problem, because game is global, just like context. So there's no issue with that. I just want to show this.
I meant on game.draw equals function, put in game.image as the parameter right there.
Game.image over here.
No.
Here.
Game.draw, sorry.
Tell me to go up or down. To the function?
Yeah, and then call it down on set timeout. Game.draw parameter.
Like that?
Yeah.
Well, here we're not invoking the function here, we're defining the function.
Yeah, but can't you put in the parameter on set timeout game.draw with the parameter game.image?
Don't understand. Wait, I got it. My ears are so bad. Once again.
So on.
Do you know VI?
Yeah.
Okay. I can let you do that.
Well, what I was saying was, so game.image would be the parameter for the function, and then down here, you can just call it as a parameter right here. Because game.image is technically already defined.
Oh, I see what you mean. No, because set timeout takes a reference to a function. You're invoking, you're doing game.draw. Yeah, you better sit down. Thank you very much. That is very good. That's very, very good. Thank you for coming up and doing that. A set timeout here. You see this? Here you're invoking a draw method. So what does the draw method evaluate to? What does it return? It's a void function. It's going to return undefined. We're going to pass undefined to set timeout. Also, this is a syntax error because we're defining the function. So maybe you want to put, X. All right, that's okay. Now we're defining the function. And down here, And then you're saying just do x dot image, right? Right? Is that right? That's what you're saying. Define the function and take an argument, and we're going to pass game dot image into the argument, right?
Just x, right? Because it's already game dot image.
Just do x down here,
No.
up here.
Yeah, because x is already game dot image, right?
X is already what?
X is already game dot image when you pass it in. So you just need to do x.
Yeah. X is game dot image. Oh, I see what you mean. Thank you. Yes. That's right. That's exactly right. Thank you. You corrected me. Thank you. That's correct. Now, the thing is, you're calling this function, and then that evaluates to undefined because it's a void function. So you're passing undefined to set timeout. Does that click when I say that? So it's gonna say something like, set timeout, passing in, maybe set timeout will be quiet, won't do anything, or else it'll complain about you're passing undefined in. Or maybe draw actually is not a void function, it returns something, but it's not gonna return, well, it might turn it itself. I don't think so though. No, it'll call this function. And then it's, so we're actually here, we're calling the draw function. We're not passing it. So this should, if this works, and set timeout ignores undefined, then it won't show the image because it's asynchronous. So if it works, it won't show the image. All right, let's see it. That's my hypothesis. It works, it doesn't show the image. That's because you're passing in undefined to set timeout. This is the same thing as doing this. And apparently it's good with that. It doesn't mind getting undefined as an argument. There we go. It doesn't show the image. But what you could do is, see, you want to make this a function. It gets invoked. And when that function is invoked, then you want to call game.draw. That's going to work. Because set timeout needs a function pointer. It doesn't need the return value of invoking a function. It works. All right, at the end. I haven't given you the good code yet. I'm holding off. We haven't seen bind yet. And but we're getting there. Okay, set timeout and game.draw. And up here, I'm going to put this back. This is just a function, and this because I'm trying to illustrate this here. This dot image. All right. We're at the end here. And we got the set timeout. This is going to fail unless we make image global. That will succeed. That succeeds because image. But if image is not global, that fails because this refers to window, and there's no image in the window object. So what we want to do is we've got to tell it, we've got to use the bind. See this right here? That's a function. That's a reference to a function. And functions are objects. And objects have member functions, right? That they inherit through their prototype chain. And there's a function called bind. Every function has a bind function. Ordinary objects don't have bind. Ordinary objects don't have bind. Functions have bind. Okay, the function prototype has a bind in it. And what bind does is when you call, this is a function, and when you call bind on that function, bind returns something. This doesn't evaluate to undefined. Remember the problem? We're passing in undefined. But you're calling a function. We're calling bind on a function pointer. Bind returns a function. So we're passing a function to set timeout. What function are we turning? What function do we pass into time? Set timeout? It's a function that simply sets this to game. That's why the code will work. Now, when the draw method is called, this.image, this will refer to game, so this.image is the correct reference to the object, to the image object. There it is. So that's bind. Now, you do the same thing for this, if you want to go with the event listener here. It's the same thing. Take that out. The event listener needs a function reference. We take our function, we call bind, passing in game, so that it's called a wrapper function. It returns a wrapper. Game.draw is a function, and we wrap game.draw in this wrapper function, and the wrapper function simply sets this to game and then calls game.draw. Or it calls game.draw with this set to, well, I don't know how to explain it. Let's see that one work as well. So this will be immediate. This is the one we want. This will just pop like that, okay? There we go. We don't have to wait for it because it's going to load fast, right? We're not waiting a second now. But we have to wait for the image to load. If we don't do this with the event listener, we're going to try to draw the image before the pixels have been retrieved, so we get nothing. And that is it. That's my that's our basically looking into this item right here. This callbacks and the bind function. So I hope that's clear to you. If you become a JavaScript programmer, you're going to need to deal with this bind function and this issue. And that's it for today. So that's good. I think we're right at the end.